Team, on today's episode, I sit down with Maya Rolston. She's been here before. She is a nutritionist and she specializes in the field of women's health, specifically working with female athletes. And in this episode, we talk about REDs, which is relative energy deficiencies in sport. And this is a thing that we see a lot in female sport. I've seen it a lot in the CrossFit industry. And it's things like losing your menstrual cycle, low energy, and reductions in bone density over time. We talk about why these things are so important, why we need to know more about it, and what to do about it if you're experiencing it or you know someone who is. Hello, Maya.
Hello, Ed.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very good, but before you ask me how I am,
Okay.
Why are you good?
Why am I good? Slept well? Had a productive morning? It's cool and crisp outside.
Are you liking the cool, crisp weather?
Yeah, I like it.
That? Yeah.
I like it. I just kind of wish Hong Kong would commit to one or the other. I don't like the getting cold and then it's going to get hot again and get cold again. Just commit to it.
When you say commit to it, like, would you like a whole year of just coldness all the time, or you want like a more prolonged season where it's consistently cold? Is what you're saying?
I like seasons. I like the contrast. I like when it goes from summer to autumn and then gets properly cold for Christmas, I'd say. It makes me feel festive, like Hong Kong, cold weather.
Yeah.
It's nice.
You know, I agree with the festive part. What I don't like about the cold, like today, what I don't like about it is it's cold and it's grey.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like that's bottom of the pile.
Yeah.
For me. It's like almost I'd rather cold, grey and wet. So you just kind of totally stay out of it. And then at least you like embrace like the coziness and the homeliness.
We needed like Saturday, Sunday, blue skies with this temperature. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Like 20, well, no, it's actually way below 20 today.
Yeah.
It's suddenly plummeted. Anyhow.
Sunny and crisp. That's what we're looking for.
Maya,
hopefully.
This is not your first time on the podcast.
It is not.
I'm
back.
Time. I was just saying how much I love having repeat guests because there's like this certain level of comfort.
Yeah.
We've already been here before. And I know that last time we spoke, we just like scratched the surface in terms of the things that you are super passionate about and the things that you do with your work and how you're impacting the world. And so we were always going to get you back on.
Always.
But this is very timely because this whole series is about women's health and women in sport specifically. But for those who don't know you, who are you and what do you do?
I'm Maya. I am a nutritionist and sports nutritionist. So my master's was in sports nutrition. So I'm qualified to work with elite level athletes. But in Hong Kong, I do a bit of everything. So I work with athletes and I work with general population individuals, women's health, a lot of focus around fat loss, but also always keeping performance nutrition and fueling and recovery and optimizing performance as kind of a really, really high priority.
Why women in sport and performance? Like, why is that word just popped up a lot there when you talked about what you do?
Performance? I mean, I guess performance kind of characterizes everything. I use the term performance really broadly. So your ability to kind of show up in relationships, in the office, in your gym workout, all the way through to kind of high level elite sport. And I guess I just think life is too short to not kind of bring your best foot forward in whatever kind of avenue of your life you are sort of facing. So the principles kind of remain the same, whether I'm working with kind of a high-powered corporate businesswoman, mums, all the way through to, people doing, Ironman, Iron Woman, and people competing at a really high level in kind of whatever sport.
So from a nutrition standpoint, let's take those two avatars that you just shouted at there, like the kind of like high-performing office worker versus a high-performing athlete. What are the biggest differences that concern you in your role as a nutritionist between those two people?
I mean, that's an interesting question. Not as many differences as you would imagine. In terms of my considerations are very similar. I'm still looking at making sure we're meeting their caloric needs, making sure they're consuming adequate carbohydrate and they have enough energy levels to perform across their day, making sure they're getting enough, fats, fiber. The main differences are just what they need is different, but I'm still considering all of the main factors. So I suppose the difference between obviously a high-performing female athlete is more calories, more carbohydrate, more looking at sort of fueling, their specific training schedule, pre, during, post, recovery, managing their load across, training season, performance season, and looking at strategies to do that. I suppose it's a little bit more simple for someone that is, working in an office, maybe recreationally active, hiking, gymming. I'm still considering everything and taking that as seriously. I suppose it's just a different set of requirements. Does that make sense? And maybe we're looking at different challenges like travel and managing, maybe their body composition goals or how they feel, their sleep, their energy around just, a different set of obstacles, perhaps.
I mean, I know you work with both, but is there one of the two that you prefer working with?
Sports nutrition just really it reminds me why I chose to do this. Like even just, reading up on a few things today, making sure I was prepared for this podcast. I'm just like, oh, this is good. Like I just love sports nutrition. It's a lot more precise in some ways, as in we know physiologically what the body requires to perform in X scenario. So you're essentially kind of nutrition Tetrising it to fit with a person's preference, tolerance, logistics, timings, like what they have access to. So it's like problem solving essentially. Like you always say to me in the gym, like it's like a puzzle. Okay, your hip hurts. Can you do a split squat in a different position to take the load off? It's exactly the same with performance nutrition. So yeah, I just love performance nutrition. I think it's great. And I think that's why I bring it into everything else. Because, it's not, I'm never bored by like general population individuals. I love fat loss. I love helping women feel good. But I also love bringing those elements of performance nutrition into their life. Because I think there's an element of like, oh, they're not competing in an elite level. It doesn't matter how many grams of carbs they have. I totally disagree. Like, why wouldn't we help everyone optimize performance at whatever age and stage or place they are at? So I guess that brings the level of excitement to all individuals for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. In my field of expertise, I started with general population, and you're just helping everyday folks just try to get more out of life. And then it's not that became easy, because like you said, like there are levels to all of this, right? And how deep you're willing to go means like you never achieve it, right? There's never you never complete the final boss. But I just got to a point where it was like I just wanted the challenge.
Yeah.
And there's something about athletes that I found, really challenged me. Yeah, challenged me mentally and challenged my skill set. And I think some of the things that jump out straight away, it's like you got timelines to work with.
Yeah.
You got people prepping for a competition.
Yeah.
That might be, a 1 month window, a 1 year window. If you're working with an Olympian, we're talking like you got 4 years to get this person in the absolute best shape.
Requires a lot more. It changes more than general population.
Yes.
Like most of my general population individuals can stick to pretty much the same protocol consistently, and it's just a matter of navigating whatever is coming up in their life to implement the same consistent plan. Whereas like you said, athletes, it's sort of ever changing.
And consequences.
Totally.
Like there are huge consequences
Yes.
if an athlete doesn't achieve high performance on the biggest stage, whatever that is, and that pressure is for a lot of coaches, like they don't want to put themselves into that arena.
It is a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
keeping them healthy as well.
You got to take that responsibility. But a part of me was like, I just saw this as like a natural evolution of my journey as a coach. It's like, well, if I can help athletes, then I feel like I'm unstoppable. Then I can help anyone. Yeah. That's kind of the way that I look at it.
For sure. I agree. I mean, there's different challenges to both of them.
Yeah.
In some ways, general population people can be a little bit more consistent or maybe willing to, I don't know, athletes are not always the simplest people to work with.
100%.
They're also just like us, and they're people and they're women and still face a lot of the kind of the same pressures. But yeah, it's not like, oh, they're an elite level athlete, so they must absolutely nail their nutrition.
No.
I work with so many elite level athletes that don't fuel well. And yeah, I guess that would surprise maybe a lot of people listening that even athletes don't know what to do with their nutrition. Yeah. And I try and talk about that on social media because I sometimes think that people maybe think they have to be in a really bad place or know nothing about nutrition to work with a nutritionist. So I try and say no, you can still know what you're doing and have a lot of room for, increasing and improving performance.
And what are some of those things that you find, elite level athletes in the space of nutrition struggle with? It's
more often than not, it's always underfueling, which I know we're going to talk about now. It's just underfueling. I'd say that's the biggest area. Maybe focusing too much on majoring on the minors, so focusing on supplements too much, or maybe always just focusing too much on training, to be honest.
Would you say majoring the minors?
I just mean focusing. That's something my old boss used to say. I've seen it thrown around social media. Basically just focusing too much on the little things and not on the bottom of the pyramid. We'll talk about periods as well. But so whenever I talk about or do any talks to athletes about nutrition, I always start with a hierarchy of needs. Bottom of the pyramid is always calorie intake. So, and then top of the pyramid is supplements or things you might read on social media. So it's like, we've got to focus on step one before we, go further up the pyramid to everything else. With endurance athletes, it's usually calorie intake and training stimulus. But yeah, more often than not, it is just calorie intake. So I'd say that's the biggest sort of thing that trips up elite level athletes is fueling.
Okay, you said underfueling.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So basically not consuming enough energy. I'm going to use the term energy and calories interchangeably. Calories are the energy value of food. So I mean the same thing. Not consuming enough energy to meet the demands of exercise. So yeah, just simply not eating enough to fuel properly for whatever training they're doing and recover optimally for the next session, the next week, whatever it is.
And I guess it probably goes deeper than that, doesn't it? Because you said eating enough for the training that they're doing.
Yeah.
But, we can have two different people who are training for the same sport.
Yeah.
But their needs could be very different.
Absolutely.
So dive into that.
Training load, intensity, height, weight, obviously a bigger individual. Let's look at like rugby, for example. Like a prop is obviously going to be eating a lot more than like a winger. So we all have our own individual needs and compositions to maintain, training schedules to navigate. So, in simple terms, someone that's doing training for an endurance-based event has a very, very high energy output. Maybe someone who is a netball player or a football player, maybe team sports, will probably require fewer calories because their energy expenditure might be a little bit lower. I'm talking about an endurance-based athlete that's doing hours on the bike, in the pool, running. That's quite an extreme example, but you can see that obviously they would need to fuel that performance and recover. And sometimes logistically, it's incredibly difficult to simply consume that many calories. So yeah, I guess we're looking at training volume, load, body composition, recovery, whether they have an injury or not will impact their nutritional requirements as well. But yeah, so many considerations.
Are there sports that you see this being more prevalent in than others? You mentioned just endurance sports there, but like where do you see this more?
Probably in female athletes that are doing endurance-based sports. This leads into, I don't know if you want me to go into it now, but relative energy deficiency in sport. So basically that's a term used for chronic underfueling. So it's basically
REDS, right?
Yes, REDS in short. So it's basically a syndrome caused by insufficient energy intake relative to an athlete's energy output. So you don't need to be doing like an insane amount of exercise to be suffering from REDS. It's the relationship between not eating enough based on your output. So I've seen athletes that are suffering from REDS that aren't doing a crazy amount of training, but they are chronically underfueling. So it's like saying, oh, you must have to be really, really skinny to have an eating disorder. It's like, no, you don't have to. Anyone can kind of suffer. That's a whole other conversation. But yes, and that is basically causes a lot of physiological and psychological problems, impaired metabolic health, cardiovascular health, immunity, bone health, menstrual function, and obviously a massive decline in exercise performance and recovery. And we see this more often in endurance-based sports, understandably, because it's then harder to meet your energy demands if your output is very high.
Can I pause you there,
Please.
Maya? So in the endurance, you're typically seeing this in endurance sports, but that's just because it's just they're struggling to get the appropriate amount of calories, or they're just undercalculating what they actually need to be having.
If we're speaking about the female athlete, it's probably that their energy output is so high. There's also a lot of pressures. We were talking earlier before we started recording about sports where women are not wearing a lot of clothes and the body image pressures as well that come with that.
CrossFit.
I still find it, I still find it crazy that they make, all power to the women if they, feel comfortable and want to perform in this, but I find it crazy that they have to run in those little running underwear, knickers, running, whatever, like the pants.
So good though.
So I just find that crazy. I actually am young enough that we had gym knickers in my primary school in Northern Ireland. They were like burgundy gym knickers that like dug into your thighs. Anyway, so is it more prevalent in endurance sports? Yes, because the energy output is so high, but also because it's still women at the end of the day who are maybe struggling with, body image concerns and pressures as well. And just a lack of education, I suppose.
So endurance sports where women typically are wearing less clothes.
Well, that's more my...
Is that like a hypothesis that you're
it's more so that in a sport that prioritizes or glorifies, or there is a focus on aesthetics like ballet or gymnastics and maintaining a certain body composition for that particular sport. Like we all know, like gymnasts want to look a certain way. They also, practically want to be able to move and
But probably
perform.
also outside of just wanting to look a certain way, like there is a reason that all
Oh, it's
gymnasts
a
look a
requirement
certain
as
way, right?
well.
It's what makes you probably excel at the sport the most, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's always that, maintaining a certain body composition can be beneficial for the sport as well, for sure. But then that's also added, pressures for sure
Yeah.
on the athlete. Like they're always being aware of their weight, or their coach says, we're a little bit up, we need to bring it down. There is a lot at play there. So yeah, endurance athletes that are, there's a focus on aesthetics. And then it's no surprise that not only are these sports the ones that suffer from RED-S, but there's also a greater prevalence in eating disorders or disordered eating in these types of sports as well. So a good thing to highlight as well with RED-S is people that suffer from RED-S, some have an eating disorder, some don't. It doesn't mean that you have a disordered relationship with food or you have an eating disorder, but the likelihood that you maybe have a little bit of a prevalence of a disordered eating or an ED is probably more likely in these individuals.
Are there any statistics on RED-S and whether it affects more women or men?
Yeah, so it's more so women. It's hard to know the exact split, but it says it disproportionately impacts women, saying about 60% of female athletes will suffer from some form of an energy deficit. So underfueling. But in terms of RED specifically, it's quite hard to find the statistics online because they haven't screened every female athlete in the world. But a study done in 2001, which is fairly recent, showed that about 80% of athletes and sort of elite level athletes and sort of pre-elite level athletes, up to 80% suffered from some symptoms of RED-S. And then they say about 30 to 50% of elite level athletes can suffer from RED-S. So that's like half. It's a lot.
I envision it being this really affecting a population that sits below the elite category. I can imagine like when you get to the elite, most of them are working, either they're more educated, they're working with nutritionists, they're dialing those things in a lot more. But I can I'm also thinking about myself here, by the way, that kind of like subcategory below, the people who are like, they take it very seriously, but they're not maybe professional. This isn't their livelihood.
I would agree with that for sure. Like your amateur endurance runners or people that are teetering on the edge of being professional, they don't have the S&C coach, the sports dietitian, sports nutritionist just yet. I don't think that elite level athletes are immune to this because there can be some organizations where some sports just don't get the attention that they need. And like I said, it's not always just endurance. People are maybe lost in a team sport and really struggling and not getting that sort of personalized high level support. But yes, I would completely agree with that. It's probably people that are navigating their journey alone and haven't had that education at that point, which we know is key to managing, avoiding, preventing, and treating athletes that are suffering with RED-S or symptoms of RED-S.
Okay, so this is not just affecting females, it's affecting males. I am one of those males, by the way, that definitely looking back on like my athletic journey.
Yeah.
And maybe even today actually still sometimes creeps into.
But I wouldn't say you have RED-S. Okay. I'd say there'd be days where you maybe, or previous parts of your story where you have maybe had a slightly disordered approach to eating.
For sure. Which we talked about quite a bit last time.
For sure, exactly. And maybe you've underfueled for a period of time. But I suppose what RED-S, how it is different to that is it's categorized by a real broad spectrum. It's been a long day of consistent symptoms that cover sort of a really wide variety of symptoms, from physiological symptoms to psychological symptoms. I guess it's chronic, consistent underfueling, which is characterized by, a consistent and significant decline in performance, where you need to make a change because you're basically falling to pieces, I would say.
Right. So what is there? This is going to be hard to answer.
I know.
Is
there
a timeline that dictates when something then becomes chronic? Team, I want to quickly interrupt this episode to give a little shout out to our sponsors today, Well Spent. This little journal has made such a massive, profound impact on my life since I started using it. When I started using it, I actually didn't know that it was backed by neuroscience, but now it totally makes sense. This has brought a ton of gratitude to my life. It keeps me on track and focused on the things I need to do day to day, and brings a lot of context as to how each day fits within the greater week and the greater month. So if you, like me, really care about trying to be a high performer and want to do everything you can to make that happen, I cannot recommend this journal enough. Use our discount code, The Process, to grab yours today.
In terms of reds, I'm not 100% sure. In terms of something like menstrual dysfunction, we know that it's not having a regular menstrual cycle for, say, 3+ months. So that would be a symptom of reds and a really key indicator that people are suffering. So I suppose if we were to apply that to other symptoms, I guess something that is going on for a sustained period of a few months where you are not effectively recovering. Hypothalamic amenorrhea is characterized by 3+ months without a regular menstrual cycle. And we know that the loss of a period is a symptom of reds. I suppose the reason it's a broad spectrum is so it applies to men as well as women. I would say for a prolonged period of time where you are not getting better and you are unable to maintain or sustain normal performance and recovery, and it's affecting you mentally, physically. And I think it would be quite easy to assess. The psychological symptoms, particularly, it can lead to anxiety, depression, low mood, irritability, and you'd feel pretty broken.
Okay, well, that was going to be my next question, symptoms. So like, okay, for females, a loss of the menstrual cycle,
Yes,
the 3
is a
months
symptom.
is a
Yeah.
symptom. What are some of the other symptoms if we're listening to this now and we're doing some self-diagnosis?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I honestly question whether I'm actually eating enough. And I think a lot of people who train multiple times a week, whether they're an athlete or not, but they take it seriously, are probably asking themselves that question on a very regular basis. And then, you have a couple of days where you feel like shit.
Yeah.
And you're looking at everything, you're reflecting back, and it's like, well, I'm doing all the right things. And then you start having the question marks, like, is it the food? Am I just not eating enough? Even though the calculators that I'm following or the people I'm speaking to are all telling me I'm having enough. So what are those other symptoms that we can self-diagnose?
Yeah, I suppose it would be, you always have like an assessment on what up on your program, which is like, how are you feeling today? How much, energy do you have? So it'd be, I guess, low energy, increased prevalence of injury, feeling like you're recovering really badly between sessions, low immunity, loss of your menstrual cycle, low mood swings, irritability. You would notice a significant decline in performance and recovery.
Yeah.
Trying to think if there's anything else, maybe getting sick frequently, feeling weak, a loss of strength. I guess you would see it in aerobic exercise as well, just like struggling to increase RPE, things feeling just painful, heavy. Just feeling probably pretty flat. And like I said, there can be sometimes an increase in depression, anxiety, and just, how you're feeling overall in terms of well-being.
So if someone's experiencing these symptoms, then they start to think, okay, this could be me.
Yeah.
Does this person have to be very lean? Can you have high levels of body fat and be, basically be experiencing reds?
That is a really, really good question. I would say I think it's less likely that someone would be experiencing reds if they are a healthy weight or carrying excess body fat, because by default they're not maintaining a low body weight. Low, very dangerously low, but that's obviously an indicator that they're not chronically under fueling.
Yeah.
I would say you could probably burn out and feel fatigued and not be fueling optimally, as in you could still be overweight without fueling optimally, getting enough carbohydrate, be, consuming carbs at the correct time, be recovering from exercise. Maybe you could be experiencing symptoms of reds, but I don't. That's a really good question. I would say it's categorized by having I guess the issue with reds is it is categorized by having a low body weight, I guess, in which weight restoration is a key sort of recovery strategy.
So I guess it's like, I think that what we can't confuse this with, right, is being in a deliberate caloric deficit.
Yeah.
Because we're talking this reds is something where it's like you're chronically experiencing this.
If reds is characterized by chronic underfueling to meet energy output, then I don't think someone that was overweight or maintaining a really, really healthy weight range would have reds, but they could be suffering from overtraining, underfueling at the right times and still be able to optimize performance. Sorry. That took a while to get out.
No, I agree.
I was like, I need to think about that one.
I think that would be the way, because I don't want people to get misled here thinking, because when you are, people who are on a weight loss journey are deliberately putting themselves in a caloric deficit.
Correct. You're not going to get reds.
And you're accepting that you're going to have, a lot of those symptoms could be a part of being in a caloric deficit, but it's intentional, there's a purpose for this.
Correct.
What you're talking about here is not an intentional deficit, but it's like, these are people who are saying that performance is what they want,
Yes.
but are actually under consuming, and
Yeah.
it's now starting to consistently negatively impact.
Correct. I would say REDS is much more specific to sport. So
Yeah.
I've never met a general population individual who I would, think has REDS. So we're talking about high level elite athletes. What we discussed earlier is something called the female athlete triad, which is kind of a sub-concept of REDS that refers to issues that female athletes or women in sport or active women can sometimes suffer with. And all it means, triad, is the relationship between three factors, which is low energy availability, menstrual dysfunction, and decreased bone health or bone mineral density. So that is probably more applicable to the people that might be listening to this podcast, which is chronic underfueling, overexercise, that leads to the loss of a regular menstrual cycle, hypothalamic amenorrhea, the loss of a cycle for more than 3 months, which then has really horrendous sort of ramifications on bone health, long-term bone health, osteopenia, osteoporosis, if not fixed when you are young and, can perhaps build back up your bone mineral density. So that is probably something that I have seen in recreationally active women that is a little bit more relevant to, people that would be listening, CrossFitters, people that train a lot, people that are lean and in great shape or, look lean and in great shape. That's something that they would perhaps struggle with. REDS, like we said, not really applicable to people that might feel occasionally tired, underfuel a little bit. We're talking about people that are performing at quite a high level.
Okay, I would like to suggest that we break down those three.
Yes.
So let's start with the low energy availability. We talked already. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, right? So
but it's a big energy deficit. So similar to REDS, it's characterized by a big energy output and a basically insufficient fueling.
Okay.
So I'm, my energy requirements, let's say, are 2,500 per day, and I'm chronically underfueling, maybe eating in a deficit for a really sustained period of time and maintaining a low body weight. So this isn't someone that has a lot of body fat to lose that's eating in a deficit. This is maybe a female athlete with a body fat percentage under 18%.
Yeah.
So we're talking like low body fat percentage, low weight, underweight essentially. And basically that low energy availability and that low body weight can lead to the next thing, which is...
Okay, pause.
Yeah.
Let's say someone's thinking, this might be me now. Number one, how do we give me like the quick spiel on how one can actually determine what they probably should be having? I know obviously those who have the resources, they would reach out to someone like you, an expert, and work with you and go through a whole assessment process. But how can one, there's calorie calculators all over the internet, you plug in some basic things, like how accurate are those? What's like your go-to method for one to be able to calculate?
If you ask ChatGPT to give me a calorie calculation based on science, there's a few, I've forgotten the name of them, but they do give you a proper one. But body weight in kilograms times 22 will give you your basal metabolic rate. And then you times that.
Which is basically the amount of calories we're burning.
Doing nothing.
Doing nothing.
So nobody should just be eating that. Okay. So that calculates your basal metabolic rate. So for me, let's say I'm around 60 something kilos, maybe 63, 64. I think my basal metabolic rate is about maybe 1,450 calories, let's say. Then I would times that by a physical activity calculator. If anyone Googles physical activity calculator, it should be like 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7. And each of them has gives you a rough indicator of how much activity someone's doing in a week. Most people will be about 1.5, 3 to 5 exercise sessions per week. I use that and it's really foolproof.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to even shortcut that, body weight in kilos times 33 does the BMR times 22 times by 1.5. But if you wanted to be more hot with it, kilograms body weight times 22, that gives you your BMR, and then you times it by how many times you're exercising per week. So athletes might be more like 1.6, 1.7, but most people 1.55, I think it is. And that will give you your average maintenance calorie intake.
Got it. If someone, because I'm thinking these days, basically everyone's wearing either a ring or, an Apple Watch or a smartwatch.
That's my head in.
Or a Whoop. And like these things are giving you like, they're basically telling you your BMR.
Yeah.
They're telling you like how many calories. Like
I just think it confuses people more than necessary. And then they're like, do I eat back my calories? It's like, it's I love anything that motivates people to get active. I'm not shitting on the smartwatches, but the calories and whatever, it can just be an estimation. So I would say sometimes they're accurate, but that equation is going to be just your safest bet to getting to. It's never failed me in all of my years as working as a nutritionist. So yeah, I would say just do that equation. It's probably better than getting confused by your output and the variability of, but some days I burn X amount of calories and some days I burn less. Most people are completely fine to stick to that intake roughly consistently throughout the day.
Okay, let's get back to the low energy availability. By the way, I'm looking at the triad right now. So low energy availability, loss of menstrual cycle, and reduction of bone density. Low energy availability, I'm assuming is the less evil of the three. Is it the easiest fix?
Well, it depends how deep into, because it's the low energy availability that then leads into the menstrual dysfunction, and it's the menstrual dysfunction and the loss of that cycle they all loops around into each other.
I'm looking at this as I'm looking at these in silos, by themselves. I'm assuming low energy availability that's not now impacted bone density and menstrual cycle.
So well, it depends how long they've been chronically underfueling. So if I work with a few female athletes that don't have a regular period because they have on and off dieting for years, body image pressures, concerns, yo-yo dieting, and they've never been able to get back from that, probably because they've continued to yo-yo. So I think what you're saying is, what's the quickest fix?
Yeah.
Essentially, if you've lost your period for years, what you need to do is
you know what, let's get into this.
The treatment will answer a lot of the questions I think you're going to answer. So how do we help someone recover from REDs?
Actually, no, before we even get into how we fix it, I feel this is being talked about way more. Like there's more and more podcasts, more and more experts, social medias, people always talking about, guys, like this is a really important thing we need to be paying attention to if you are losing your menstrual cycle. Well, more so than ever before.
More so than ever, I would say yes, it's being talked about, but it's not less prevalent because it's being talked about. As in everyone is still suffering with this. Okay. So I think more talk about how to normalizing it and how to treat it.
Yeah, I think but before that, before how to treat it, like why should we treat this? Like why is this so important?
Well, when you lose your menstrual cycle for more than 3 months, hypothalamic amenorrhea, not only is there a greater incidence of anxiety and depression, but it can lead to infertility.
So can I pause you there? Because I know a lot of women who have this.
Yeah.
And when the fertility conversation comes up, their answer is, I don't want to have kids anyway.
Yeah. I think it's really hard and I've had to try and explain to 20-year-old female athletes that this matters. But unfortunately, in the eyes of a lean, athletic young female who isn't looking down the barrel of conception and all of that, now it's really hard to motivate them with that until they're in their late 20s, early 30s, and that clock begins to kind of tick, or they become more aware of those goals. But yeah, it's really difficult because why would I give a shit about having kids? I look hot as hell and I want to be lean, and not me, them.
Yeah. I think you look great.
And thanks, Ed. But so it's really hard to motivate them with that. But I do try and say, like, look, this is something that you really need to care about, whether you do or not. I don't want to scare them or frighten them. But essentially that loss of that menstrual cycle can lead to infertility if it goes on for a long period of time without intervention. But also that lack of that regular menstrual cycle and sort of hormonal imbalance, menstrual dysfunction, whatever you want to call it, not only will it impair fertility, but just wreaks havoc on bone health, as in estrogen, which declines and is involved in bone remodeling and basically keeping your bones dense and strong, basically goes to shit. Like, you could have the bone density of a 6-year-old woman at 25 if you're not careful. And, what we know about bone health and bone density is if we build that up and we get our bones as strong as we can when we're young and, in our late 20s, early 30s, the higher you are, the more dense your bones are, the longer you have to fall, essentially.
You create a buffer.
When your bone density, inevitably maybe declines as you age, along with muscle mass and things like that, we want to keep that as, optimal and high as possible. So yeah, why does it matter? Well, you can get things like osteopenia, osteoporosis, and in simple terms, old, frail, more at risk of bone fractures, and not being a fit older woman, a fit, active older woman, someone that's able to get on and off the floor, play with their kids, their grandchildren, whatever it is. So I suppose it's a really tough one because you're trying to get a young woman to care about something before they would naturally care about it.
Yeah.
Like, think about how you want to feel at 70. It's like, I don't care about that right now. So that's a really, really tough one. Imagine if I said to you, like, but bone health, Ed, when you were like in your early 20s, you'd be like, yeah, I care about that, but I want to look good and I want to look lean. And that
Yeah.
is, even if you want to care about it, like, you don't care about it as much as you care about body composition. And this is like the biggest challenge
Yeah.
with the female athlete. Is it's like, how do you get someone to fuel optimally when they're battling body image concerns, disordered eating and eating disorder, and maintaining what is an unattainable body composition or very low level of, of body fat?
So it sounds like what you're saying is that the negative effects of losing your menstrual cycle are more long-term issues downstream.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
are there any short-term impact on things like performance? If someone,
Absolutely.
so what are those things?
Oh, I mean, on performance, I guess you would have lost your cycle because you're chronically underfueling.
Underfueling.
So by default, you're not going to be recovering well. You're at greater risk of injury. You're just not going to feel good. I guess you don't have many resources to be putting on a lot of lean muscle mass. And yeah, just there's nothing in the tank.
Yeah.
If you're an endurance-based athlete, you probably will get sick more frequently. And that will obviously impact your training schedule. If we miss months and months of training across the year, you're probably not going to be performing at your best. So keeping yourself healthy at the same time is super important. Yeah.
Are there any special cases where losing your menstrual cycle is like, it's okay? Like, is there like other certain medical conditions that maybe like people might be diagnosed or undiagnosed that like have losing your menstrual cycle as like a part of it?
Yeah,
Because
I mean,
I've heard
some
this,
medications and things like
yeah,
that.
I've heard this as an excuse a number of times where people say, oh, it's not even about fertility. I just have X and therefore I'm never going to have it.
I mean, my only
These
experience.
people are extremely lean as well, though. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like,
I mean, my only experience with that is people that are on like a certain type of contraception, so they just don't have a regular menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, people are put on birth control to induce a cycle.
And is that the same impact when people are on birth control and they're having multiple months or years of not having a cycle? I know that's medicated, but
Yeah.
are there long-term impacts on the female body and female health?
I'm not 100% sure in terms of their skipping their cycle because they're on contraception. Shouldn't be harmful, granted you are, eating enough, you're fueling, healthy diet, exercise, whatever. Then, if I was just on a birth control, which meant I didn't get a period, then for me personally, I don't have reds, I'm fueling appropriately, it'd probably be fine. But yeah, it's definitely a consideration. I guess a lot of people that are maybe conscious of underfueling and maybe know or feel bad about the fact that they're not getting a regular period and they know it's because they're very lean, but maybe they're not quite ready to face it psychologically.
Yeah.
Then maybe they use that as a bit of a cop out. But I'd love to talk as well about how you treat it nutritionally and what someone that struggles with hypothalamic amenorrhea, the loss of a menstrual cycle, overtraining, underfueling, and is worried about their bone health and things like that could do nutritionally.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've worked with a number of clients who fit this category perfectly, like high performing females, extremely lean levels of body composition, that were driven mainly through insecurities and social pressure. And I think it's really important for anyone who's been doing CrossFit as long as I have, 2000, what's really interesting is that you look at photos of athletes at the 2014 CrossFit Games, men and women, and they are shredded.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, CrossFit is shredded now, but I'm talking like these guys could step on stage and probably place in the top 3. It was crazy how lean they were.
Yeah.
Because, we had the paleo zone diet was very much attached to a high performance sport. People hadn't yet disassociated the difference between CrossFit as a sport and CrossFit as a training methodology.
Yeah.
So as a training methodology for health, people moving to paleo diet was really good, generally speaking, because people cut out a lot of processed foods. They like
There's
were
good components
whole
of it.
foods. Yeah. And people generally became a lot healthier.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the intensity side of the training was probably a little bit too high, but that's a different thing. But then people weren't able to discern that athletes needed something different from the general pop. So if you look at 2014, CrossFitters were so crazy lean. And I remember looking at myself, already was sub 10% body fat, thinking I'm fat. I'm
That's
looking at the guys
insane.
at CrossFit Games, and I'm thinking, wow, like I still remember my first high level competition, 2014 in Korea. And bear in mind now I'm quite lean, I would say, at 83, 84 kg. I was 76 kg. and like
It's
had
crazy.
veins like popping
Yeah.
out my abs, and
That's
was
probably just suboptimal for performance on all
it was
levels.
absolutely.
Did you feel pressure to trim down a little bit before that comp?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So not only are you already lean, you're probably trimming down a little bit because you want to look good and you want to look the part. And that was probably back in those days
And that was in
a
the
real
CrossFit
token
days.
of you being a high level athlete.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, people still do compete with their shirts off now in CrossFit. But back then, like everyone was basically naked on the floor.
Yeah.
And there was certainly a social pressure. It's like, wait, this is a high level competition.
There are other
like,
industries to do that, you know?
Yeah, I know. I know.
Don't say it.
I won't.
So yeah, the plan and kind of intervention, I guess, if someone is in that position, if I can pivot into that.
Yeah, let's do it. It's important.
Essentially, if it is REDS or hypothalamic amenorrhea, even though there's overlap between them, but they are different things. What we need to do, step one, is to increase your calorie intake at the very least to maintenance, but for most people, a sustained period of a caloric surplus. So eating more than you would need at baseline to support weight restoration, recovery, basically like heal yourself back to baseline from carrying a very low weight.
How aggressively can you jump up at once?
Oh, I mean, it depends. I mean, you'd be working with an individual. The thing about this is it's intervention for a individual. So it'd be working with someone, and you don't know how comfortable they would feel about increasing their energy intake, what their training volume looks like, how severe their amenorrhea is, or how severe their REDS is, for example, how long they have, been struggling with this. So there is no like black and white formula, but it is basically working within like a multidisciplinary team, working with trainers, perhaps psychologists if people are, suffering with eating disorders or disordered eating, and then a sports dietitian or a nutritionist. So I mean, you could put on weight quickly if that's your question, but it's more about doing something consistently. So that is about increasing their calorie intake consistently. Because I've spoken about, like I work with elite level athletes now that still don't have a regular cycle, even though they have been, they've gained weight and they are kind of being normal these days, but they're still struggling. It's probably because the minute they gain, they maybe go in a little bit of a fat loss phase again. And they're kind of teetering between, losing weight and, balancing their body weight and how they feel about themselves. So yeah, realistically, it's like a prolonged period of letting your body recover. Usually in a small to moderate surplus, probably an additional 300 to 500 calories per day or whatever the athlete is ready for or individual is ready for. You know how difficult that would be.
Yeah.
Telling someone that has a lot of body image concerns that they just need to eat a little bit more and gain a bit of body fat. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. You're an athlete.
Yeah.
It's scary for a lot of people, and that's why support is so necessary. And like you said,
when you say sorry, Maya, I just want to make sure people
please jump in.
misunderstand
I've got too much
this.
To say.
It's not 300 to 500 that you're increasing every day, right? So you don't go 300 day one, 600 day two, 900 day three.
Yeah.
We're talking like we're saying 300 to 500. And you're sticking with that for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
You're monitoring things like body fat levels, energy, all the subjective and objective markers.
For general population, someone listening to this, it's at the very least eating at maintenance calories. Okay. Making sure you're not eating in a deficit consistently. Bringing it up to maintenance, and if you are really serious about getting your, menstrual cycle back and you're worried about the long-term effects of, infertility and bone health, and deep down you need to fix this, then it would probably be a matter of eating in a small caloric surplus. So that is calories in addition to your maintenance calories. Yep. So a few hundred calories more to kind of help your body recover. And then within that, there are other considerations like regular meal timings, not, skipping meals or prolonged periods without eating, a balance of all nutrients, and then really paying attention to fueling pre, during, post-exercise, acutely around training as well. So yeah, there are a lot of considerations on the nutrition side. And then the training side, it would be, again, a very tailored approach to reduce training intensity, volume, and in very severe cases, like stopping training altogether, a total sort of cessation in training. So there's no one size fits all approach, but definitely understanding and meeting your calorie needs with nutrition education and the right psychological support as well, I would say is the most kind of low-hanging fruit when it comes to someone that is struggling with that as a kind of recreational athlete.
Okay, so you talked at the start about this pyramid, right? So calories in, calories out, most important thing.
Yeah.
So
meeting your energy needs. Your energy
needs, right? So what you've just said there is, okay, we want to bump up those calories to at least get you to maintenance.
Yes.
is there, I know this is very case dependent as well, because
Yeah.
obviously what you'd probably do is look at the athlete and of the calories that they're currently consuming,
Yeah.
you'd basically say, okay, well, what
Yeah.
is the spread of macronutrients across the
Hmm.
board? But is there a certain macronutrient that is more important for reversing someone, out of, not having a menstrual cycle?
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure because I mean, it's your overall dietary pattern, your caloric intake, and then your intake of all macronutrients. But I would say, well, fats are very important for hormonal health and balance, but I would say carbohydrates, it's the fueling. And I guess that, whether that would reverse it or not, because it is your total energy intake and that pattern, but I'd say that's probably going to have the biggest impact on your energy availability and how you're able to perform and fuel your sessions. Um, I'd say from a performance standpoint, carbs would have, yeah, the biggest impact on performance, but everything else plays a key role in general health and I guess reversing or, restoring someone's healthy weight and sort of bodily function.
Yeah. With the bone density stuff, it's really interesting because,
Mm.
we've just launched a peak performance program, which is all about helping people, in the 45 years and upwards.
Yeah,
And, a lot of the work we're trying to do is around longevity. And so
100%.
linking everything back to,
Hmm.
you know, how we want them, how they want to
Hmm.
function ultimately, like in their later years of
Yeah,
life.
100%.
And it's
So
really
important.
prevalent, when we do our assessments with them.
Hmm.
The overarching goals for most of these guys and girls is like they've seen mum and dad and what's happened to them.
Yeah,
The kids are growing up fast, they're struggling to keep up.
yeah,
They used to be able to do crazy things with their body just 5 years ago,
it's
and now
crazy.
they've
Yeah,
lost the ability to do all these things, and that's harrowing. They want
yeah,
to get back, they want to bring back those years. So it has been, I can see how impactful this work is,
yeah,
but it's really made me like put my head back into books on things like, well, what is
100%.
actually happening to bone density?
Yeah,
When is it too late to start training? Can we reverse the effects of this?
yeah,
Protein intake, something you talk a lot
hmm,
about, and like, building as much muscle mass as possible. So,
yeah,
and obviously for these guys, loss of their menstrual cycle was not so much of a topic because it's
yeah,
more about the pauses.
yeah,
They're moving into, perimenopause and all the things associated with that.
yeah,
But yeah, it's really interesting. The
it
stuff on bone
is.
density is scary. I'm definitely going to butcher this statistic, but
Okay,
there was something
go for it.
like females who fracture
Hmm.
over the age of 60, I think, or it's over the age of 70, I think it is. So
Hmm.
if they experience a fracture, they study these women, is that the likelihood of them dying the year after a fracture
Bleak.
increases by like 70%,
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all.
because it's just a loss of function, then their lack of
Yeah.
ability to socially connect with their friends, to use their body the way they want. They basically just give up on life.
Yeah, it's so rough. Yeah, I do a lot of work actually. I don't know why I didn't mention this because this is highly relevant. I work with a lot of the Hong Kong ballet dancers
Mm,
who have had a lot of stress fractures because obviously they're maintaining a very, lean physique, very athletic body composition, and doing a lot of high impact movements with lots of jumps and a lot of stress on the body, particularly like, feet, ankles, all that kind of stuff. A lot of the injuries are around the ankle and things like that. So I get a lot of referrals from them to look at fueling more optimally, improving bone health, and of course, fertility later on in life. With a lot of them being female ballet dancers as
yeah.
well. But that's super rewarding work and so interesting. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm actually thinking about, you were just talking about how do we reverse someone out of this?
yeah,
And I think maybe a quote that I always think of, and it applies to so many aspects of like reversing ourselves out of health issues that we get ourselves
yeah,
into, is this quote, which is, if you walk 10 kilometers into the woods, you got to walk 10 kilometers out of it,
mm,
which means that, if this is something you've been experiencing for 10 years,
yeah,
then don't expect to be in a caloric
yeah.
surplus or even maintenance for 3 months, and you're potentially
That's
going to
really
reverse
true.
this
Like
thing.
if you've been yo-yo dieting for 10 to 15 years and lost your, since you were a teenager and you're late 20s now. Yeah, it's funny, people just expect things to happen quicker and maybe you can't have it all. Everything comes at a cost.
Mm,
The cost of getting your body to a healthy place might be putting on a little bit of extra body fat. And that is just so hard. But, you know, when I studied this at university and we spoke about this, like the main point of intervention is education.
yeah.
And this is why it's so important to talk about these things and I guess like normalize them and talk about the fact that like this is a bad thing. Like all women should have a healthy, regular menstrual cycle. And if they don't, it's not something that we should kind of, push under the rug, sweep
So
under the rug.
actually, I haven't asked you this question, even though I should assume I know the answer. Do Okay, so I think a misconception for a long time was that obviously most people know that losing your menstrual cycle, losing your period is not a good thing.
Yeah.
But then it was like a lot of people put elite athletes in their own special box.
Yeah.
Whereas like
oh, it's normal that they don't have
it's
it.
normal that the elite
It's not.
athletes don't have it. Okay, can we just say that? That's
It's not normal. Elite
okay.
level athletes should be able to have a regular menstrual cycle.
And
The
should
reason,
and do. Like, do
Yeah.
a lot of elite athletes have it?
I would say it's a large percentage of elite level athletes would not have a regular menstrual cycle. And that puts them at greater risk then of all of these health issues. And that is also a common symptom of REDS. Doesn't mean they have REDS, but is a pretty key predictor that they are chronically underfueling and are not giving their body, basically, in simple terms, your body is so poor of like nutrients and calories and energy that reproductive health is just not a priority. Like
Yeah.
your body's just like, oh,
It's the last
reproduction?
thing, yeah.
Absolutely not. That is the least of my worries. So you're not giving your body enough resources to cope with the demands of daily activities, life, keeping your body going, in addition to very intense physical activity. So it's not a flex. It's not cool. While it does happen and it's a consideration and it's not no one should feel bad or have, any shame in not having a regular cycle. It's not their fault, but it does require intervention and support from all areas: training, nutrition, psychological, and of course, just making sure there are no underlying health issues, medication, contraception, whatever it is that could be leading to someone not having a regular cycle. But it's definitely something that should not be ignored. And yeah, from my standpoint, it's a major red flag. If I'm working with an athlete and they don't have a regular cycle, it's one of the first questions that I would ask.
I mean, in case you didn't know, I'm not a female.
No.
Surprise. But I mean, knowing how debilitating a period can be for females, especially, people have things like endometriosis
I
and
know
stuff.
what you're going to say.
I can totally understand why being a high performing athlete,
And not having a period is
not having a period is
sweet.
actually like a win.
Fucking dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, I think about it sometimes where I think about the Olympics, right? So I've gotten myself and Cam both
Yeah.
gotten quite into athletics.
Yeah.
And just love watching it.
Yeah.
And it's like, think about something like the Olympics. You've been prepping for 4 years for this one race that's over in 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's like, if your cycle happens to fall
Yeah.
on that day, and it's a day where your cycle
You know what else?
impacts performance the most,
Yeah.
I can totally understand why you'd be like, you know what? For the
Fuck
next
that.
couple of years, I'm just gonna
ride this out.
ride this out.
You probably have a white pair of bloody training pants as well.
Yeah.
It's sod's law. Anytime you have your period, you've got to
Yeah.
wear a white outfit. It's
Yeah.
true. But yeah, I mean, it sucks. But I mean, there are things you can do to manage that. I mean, you could always like take medication that just like makes it go away
Puts
for a
on
little
pause,
bit. People
yeah.
do before they get married and everything, just so it doesn't fall on a bad day. But yeah, I mean, it sucks. This is why female athletes are so impressive. Like they've got to deal with that. They've got to deal with, pregnancy, returning from having a baby, competing. They're mad. Like it's insane.
Yeah. I'm just thinking back to, some of the clients that I worked with, and like I would like to actually just share like the realistic journey of reversing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think firstly, I think it's really important that men educate themselves on this topic. And I think I'm very lucky that my wife, works in women's health because she's constantly educating me.
Yeah.
And, I've learned so much, and I feel like I understand her cycle.
Yeah.
And, what to expect at
Yeah.
various phases.
Do you know where she's at in her cycle?
Generally speaking, yeah.
Yeah, you would
Yeah,
know.
and I know. And
You're like,
knowing,
I'd know.
It's more about also.
There will be signs.
It's knowing more about what I need to do to support her. Right.
Yeah.
And then, that there's certain times where like I need to step up my game.
Yeah.
And, like I become the provider and the supporter. And there's other times where I know she's going to be totally fine. But I also think as a coach, when I started learning about this, and admittedly, I've been coaching now for 16 years, working with females of all levels.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I'd probably say it's only in the last 5 years that I really started to, maybe not even 5 years, I'd probably say about 5 years, I started to really understand and learn about the cycle.
Yeah.
And started to see this as like this tool where I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like I am doing my clients such a disservice
Yeah.
because I don't understand what they're going through.
It's crazy, isn't it? That we've only just started to like
Yeah.
really pay attention to it.
But I hadn't also normalized talking about period, probably because I just felt like it was so out of my depth
Yeah.
that I would just rather not talk about it.
Yeah.
I'd rather not breach the subject, because then it would show that I didn't know my stuff.
100%.
And so it's just like the conversation normally goes, are you having a period? If I even ask that,
I
to be
wouldn't.
honest, probably
Where
didn't
are
say
you
it.
in your cycle? Is
Yeah.
perhaps a
And
better.
it's just like, do you get it? Do you know how to, do you know how to manage that?
Yeah.
And are you in tune with it? And if it's yes, it's like, whew,
Yeah.
like literally like, thank God I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely things that I'm way more cautious of now as a nutritionist that I wouldn't have considered as much when I first started, which is, you know, I've started a few clients that you know, like as they were getting their period. Probably not the best time of the month to begin eating in a caloric deficit when appetite is higher, hunger's higher, cravings are higher. So yeah, there's little things like that, you know, making sure that you start things at the right time and you're aware of where they're at in terms of, I guess, periodization of nutrition and training. I mean, I think a lot of people on social media can really overcomplicate this, but yeah, there are definitely considerations around the cycle when it comes to nutrition as well. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, if I was to give like advice for male coaches who are working with females, it's like, number one, definitely get educated.
Yeah.
Like, you know, listen to podcasts like this, and podcasts are great resources. So much, it's been talked about so much now.
Yeah.
And just like, you know, understand the basics of what's actually happening with the female body.
100%.
I think number two, don't be afraid to open up conversations with your client and have this be something that's normal. Don't make it weird or funky. You know, it's like intake forms when you ask people about stools. And like you get all giddy. It's like, how many times you poo a day?
Yeah.
It's like the moment you make something weird, no one wants to talk about that
I think
thing.
just saying, do you track your cycle?
Yeah.
And, you know, are there any considerations or anything that changes across your cycle? Like, yeah, I mean, most of my athletes will all track it. There are, of course, considerations in managing that. But yeah, just don't make it weird, guys.
Yeah, don't make it weird. And then, collaboration has been so powerful for me. It's like I think if your client is not educated on it, encourage them to get educated on it. Because I have found there was a period when I started, excuse the pun.
Yeah, I always do that when I'm
There was a
talking about
point
it.
in time where, as I was learning about all this, I was like, right, I'm going to take their programs to like a whole nother level now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to basically be putting in like, I'm going to be mapping ahead of time when their cycle is going to be hitting. And I'm going to be planning like heavy days, light days, aerobic days, anaerobic days.
I think you can overcomplicate it though.
And I did. I overcomplicated the shit out of it.
Just like, if you feel good, train. If you feel a bit, then just chill out. If you feel like
exactly.
shit.
And it's basically just giving them the power.
Which could happen at any time of the month for a man. Like they're feeling burnout, they're feeling tired. I like that approach better. It's just like because I've got no issue. Like I wouldn't even notice anything, any real difference in performance, like at all. I feel totally fine.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's probably my great diet and fueling.
Probably helps. So I would say just don't make it weird, and definitely like normalize it, collaborate, encourage the client to make changes to the program whenever they need to. Absolutely. And just make sure they're communicating that, you know, if it means adjusting an exercise or changing it completely or changing the intensity. I always just say, hey, listen, just drop me a note as to why you did that. So I understand where you're at, if it is linked to the cycle, and I can, you know, we can always push this heavy day back to another day when you're feeling better. But I do want to share, you know, what I think, and I don't know if you've experienced this, I'm sure you have with some of your clients, but you know, I had a client who got to a point in life where starting a family was important to her. Yeah. And you know, she had gone more than 10 years. She'd been a competitive bodybuilder in the past, then moved into CrossFit, was a high performing athlete. We're talking 10 plus years of not having a period. Wow. To the point where it was like, I don't know if this thing's actually ever going to come back. But then, you know, thoughts about having a family, you know, in her 30s, mid 30s, came on the cards. And the timeline, what it actually looked like was more than a year before she actually got her cycle back. I think it was actually 2 years.
I mean, she's lucky she got it back in the beginning.
And I think that what was, you know, what was interesting was, you know, because there was a point in time where we had stopped working together and I was just watching her journey and staying in touch with her. Yeah. Because, you know, we had a great relationship. And, you know, and eventually she fell pregnant and she's, you know, had kids now, which is really, really cool. Awesome. But, you know, for her and talking about it, it was like, she knew that this was a problem. Yeah. But like a lot of us do when we have deeply rooted trauma around decisions we make, you try to do the least amount of change and you hope that's going to be enough.
I know.
Right. So it's like, how can I hold on to being super lean, but kind of start doing enough to get this thing back.
Yeah.
And it's like you try something for 3 months, it doesn't work. And then you just try a little bit more. And it
It's
was basically,
consistency.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
just like slow turning up of the dial. It's
Well,
like, well, shit, that's clearly not enough. And eventually,
yeah.
2 years down the line, it's like, okay, I find, and it got to a point for her where it meant basically almost stopping training completely.
Yeah.
And this was someone who loved training. And this person worked in the fitness industry as well.
Yeah.
So it was like training was a
That's,
huge part of her
yeah.
identity and what made her happy. But it meant basically like training became 3 exercises in a session, 3 sets, not pushing anywhere
Yeah.
close to failure, removed all high intensity conditioning
Yeah.
work.
Correct. Exactly.
Just
That is
basically
exactly what you do. Yep.
walking, operating the caloric surplus,
Yeah.
completely changing your body composition, which meant,
You've got to put on body fat.
not posting on social media for a long period of time
Yeah.
because of this. So like it was really hard, and
That's really hard.
It's really cool to see her now come out of it because she speaks about it very openly
Yeah.
and shares a story and,
It's amazing.
and how it can impact other people. But yeah, I guess just empathizing that it's like,
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
hard.
this just shows you the importance of working with someone and getting support in doing that. That is so difficult mentally to overcome, particularly when you have to let go of the identity or that's associated with your body composition. And I'd say with a lot of women, the fear of putting on body fat and gaining weight outweighs how much they care about their bone health and their fertility longer term. I wish it wasn't that way. And I'm sure some athletes almost wish they cared less. But that feeling of like relinquishing control around your body image and how you look is like unbelievably difficult for some women to overcome. And I can completely understand.
Yeah.
That's
It's
so
a much
tough.
deeper topic than just
You
up
have
your
to completely
calories.
let go.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to watch your body change, but that's the cost of, like I said, the cost of working towards that bigger goal, I suppose.
So what's like your one grand like parting message here, Maya?
Education. Like you need to be.
And where's the best place to go for that? What are resources that you really recommend? Because there's a lot of
It's
noise
a
out
really
there.
tough one. Like the Complete Guide to Sports Nutrition, Anita Bean, is a textbook that I used at university. It's really, really easy to read. Not like overly scientific, just tells you how to do everything. For the people that really want to read up on fueling and really understanding things at a scientific level that's easy to apply. Honestly, how bad is that? I don't know one resource where people could get good evidence-based advice on fueling, training, nutrition that isn't just reading kind of sort of journal articles.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything on like the British Dietetic Association, British Association for Nutrition. There'll be like blog posts and articles. Anita Bean is a great sports nutritionist.
Yeah.
Or following good evidence-based sports nutritionists on social media that have, at the bare minimum, a degree or a master's in sports nutrition. Sorry, that's not the
No,
best.
I'm just looking now because
Anita Bean is great. Any SENR, the Sport and Exercise Nutrition Register, which my degree was affiliated with. So it's a master's accredited by the British Dietetic Association. So I'm on a register of sports nutritionists, any SENR nutritionist.
The thing is, you're just giving me all this sciencey
Sorry,
stuff. And
I
I'm
know.
like, I don't know if I want to listen to any of that.
Well, the problem is there aren't many qualified nutritionists that are doing evidence-based podcasts or putting out, follow me on Instagram, Maya Rolston Nutrition. I want to reboot my podcast that maybe talks through more things like that. But it's really like, apart from getting a consult with an accredited sports nutritionist or sports dietitian, I would be very, very cautious to trust anything you see on social media if they're not very black and white about their accreditations in their bio, masters in sports nutrition, their title, whatever. But yeah, it's really difficult. And that's why there's so much bullshit that people listen to in the, social media world. Martin McDonald, he runs Mac Nutrition. He's a great evidence-based nutritionist who puts out good podcasts. Sigma Nutrition is a good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's far and few between some of the time.
Okay, well, I think you've made a strong claim for why this is important.
Yeah.
Like I've learned a lot about REDS. I didn't even know that was a term until we talked about
Whoa.
it. So thank you for all the knowledge and wisdom as always. How can people find out more about you, Maya, and how can they work with you?
At Maya Rolston Nutrition on Instagram is probably the best way to find me. I work with clients one-to-one. Gen Pop all the way through to elite level athletes, but most of the time it is female fat loss, understanding how to eat, taking a lot of the anxiety around food and movement. And yeah, I work with people one-to-one. I have some spots open for coaching, so slide into my DMs or feel free to reach out. So yeah, that's how people can find me.
Love it. Maya, we have a closing tradition on this podcast.
Okay.
What is a quote or a mantra that resonates with you right now?
Okay, this is not my own. If anyone follows Emma Story Gordon on Instagram, who I worked with before, she's a great coach and she always puts out a few great nuggets of information. But the biggest thing that she said to me and she says to her clients is imperfect action. And that has helped me so much in business. It's helped my clients so much. And I think it's helped my food choices and general health exercise as well. So even if it's a 20-minute session, a 10-minute walk, just doing the thing, even if it's imperfect, obviously not doing things, awfully, but a lot of the time the barrier is just starting. And yeah, I guess getting rid of that perfectionist mindset has really helped me.
Love it. Maya, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining me once again.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Before we say goodbye, here's one crazy statistic for you. Did you know that almost 40% of people who listen to the show don't actually subscribe to it? Now, I didn't think that was a big deal until I actually learned about the power of hitting subscribe. For you, the listener, you get to stay up to date when we drop episodes on a weekly basis. But for us as a podcast, it really helps our visibility and helps us attract great brands and great listeners to help grow this podcast. So if you enjoyed this episode or you're a big fan of the show, please do us a massive favor and hit subscribe. Thank you so much.